Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome to Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you today from North Texas. And I have with me a good friend, guy that's been doing a lot of stuff for a lot of veterans, and I just love having him on the program here today. Mark Rockefeller, CEO of StreetShares, and that's a company that's helping veterans effectively, get some of their business funding so that they can, create their legacy, the way that they're needing to do that. And so it's really a pleasure and an honor to have Mark on the program. Welcome to the program, bud.
Thank you, James. Great to be here.
Yeah, and if you could just briefly, for those listeners that don't know what you do, maybe just in your words, kind of what StreetShares is and kind of how that is part of what you're wanting your legacy to be part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this concept that you have around legacy because it's so important. So StreetShares funds veteran-owned businesses. And we do that because we believe that veterans make great entrepreneurs. There is a rich legacy in America going back, decades of veterans leaving the service and becoming business owners. And we want to make sure that continues. When I came back from Iraq in the summer of 2008, the financial crisis was just kicking off. And so I felt like our generation of veterans, there was unique challenges to getting the funding for your business because we left the service and tried to start a business in the wake of the financial crisis when the banks weren't lending. And so we had this, legacy of veterans becoming business owners. And then for our generation, there was this barrier erected. And so we set up StreetShares to solve that problem and make sure that veterans get the funding they need.
Yeah, and it's a very admirable and just an awesome venture that you've got going here, because with veterans, there's so many statistics out there that show that veterans are 30% more productive, if not better, or the income earning potential for veterans just because of the differences between the makeup of what it takes to be someone who serves. Just that potential there is so much greater. And so for you to be backing that up, with being able to help that particular demographic, that should, in theory, help the entire nation, I would think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think veterans make great entrepreneurs for a bunch of reasons that we can discuss. And I think, veterans also, more than non-veterans, they hire veterans. So when a veteran grows a successful business, it has this ripple effect that is beneficial across the veterans community and across the country. And it solves, I think, a lot of problems in the veteran space as well, right? It gives us a mission. It gives us a new tribe. Gives us a way to take all the wonderful experience that we have and channel that into something that's just good for the country and good for our community. And so, we're honored to play a part of that. And what we can do is provide them with funding, and we do it in kind of a unique way that allows for others in the military veterans community to back up and support those loans. And so we're both an investment, products and business funding products that we have in the same house, and it's all driven by technology, which just makes it very efficient, very clean.
Absolutely. So do you feel it's important, obviously that people actively put energy into what they're doing to create a legacy, making deliberate choices in creating a legacy?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think if you don't plan, then life just kind of happens to you.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
can tell you, as someone who is a veteran, who is a father, who's a husband, who's an entrepreneur and a business owner, I do a lot of thinking about legacy and what my legacy is going to be and what I'm going to leave, to my kids and what the world's going to look like for them. And I think if you don't plan, things just happen to you and you're on a back foot, you're responsive. If you plan, you can
Sure.
sort of get, get ahead of things and think strategically, think years in advance. I can do things now that will help set my legacy and help my kids years from now. I think, um, you know, if you don't plan, you're going to be on the back foot. And I think it's very difficult to create a legacy without planning.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Um, so at this point in your career, would you say that there's still things that maybe kind of keep you up at night with the business, being a CEO, husband, father, et cetera, et cetera? Are there still things that kind of sit there in the back of your mind?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. No, there's business challenges. We're at a phase now where we're just trying to scale, right? So we've built a
Mhm.
business that
Sure.
works. We've been able to help a lot of people, but now I really, really want to hit the gas and just scale what we have, right? So we have lent
Sure.
or provided funding over $110 million now.
Wow.
So we've had over $1 billion of economic impact in the military vets community. The folks that we have funded, I believe they employ about 6,000 people now. So that sort of ripple idea,
Sure.
we've had some ripples, and I'm thrilled with that. And I want to have more, and I want to have bigger, and I want to just keep going, right? Because the numbers would tell us that there's 2.5 million veteran-owned small businesses out there.
Hmm.
I've been able to fund a few thousand of them, but there's a lot more that that I've got to help. And
Sure.
so, we're focused now on simply scaling the model that we have. I like an entrepreneurship and a new business, right? So we're 4.5 years old at this point, to like a nascent biological organism, and like cash
Hmm.
and customers and sales revenue. Those are that's your blood, that's your oxygen that you got to have to grow. Every day that you're alive and you're growing, things get better and better. But there's also predators out there, and the world is changing.
Sure.
We've got to change and stay ahead of it. And so there are constantly things that keep me awake at night, and I think that will likely be the case until until the day I die. I mean, if I'm focused on growing and building, something that matters, I'm going to have to lose some sleepless nights as I try and avoid the things that could be
Hmm.
harmful.
Hmm. So just because you have a kind of a unique viewpoint, from what your business model does and kind of where you look at things, there's kind of two schools of thought that I've seen out there. Uh, I'm sure it exists both in the civilian world as well, but I've seen it a lot in the veteran community that two different viewpoints on, say, the business plan and the financial plan and those kinds of things, having the good old fashioned structure into place. Is that something that you agree with still having, or that being a little bit less necessary? How do you feel on that?
Yeah, so it depends sort of what stage you're at, right? If you are a very early stage business, most investors know that the projections that you have are just projections, right?
Right.
And they should be taken with a grain of salt because,
Mhm.
the world is a complex and changing place, and it's very difficult to know what the future holds. If you're a fairly established business and you've been through a few iterations and what things cost, what your cost to acquire a customer is, what your cost of goods sold is, what your revenue is, what your gross margin is, and so forth, then I think folks are going to hold you to that a lot more. In our case, we're looking in particular at the cash flows from a business,
Mhm.
or we're looking at the contracts that business has. So if you're a veteran-owned business and you've got a large government contract, even if you're a brand new company, and even if your revenues are very, very low, we can provide you some funding based on that contract.
Hmm.
And so, it's going to vary with the kind of business and the kind of funding that you're going after. There's basically two ways to fund a business, right? One is you sell equity in it, so you raise equity.
Hmm.
The pros to that approach are, if the business doesn't work out, you don't have to pay it back, right? Your equity investors are taking that risk alongside you. The cons are obviously that you're giving up ownership in the business, and you're giving up some control
Right.
over the business. The other side is to take on debt, borrow. For businesses that have a very bright future and the cash flow is there, usually borrowing is best because they don't want to give up any ownership, any control, any equity in their
Mhm.
company. But of course, those loans are probably going to outlast your business, right? So if things don't
Right.
work out for you, your creditors still want that money back. So there's pros and cons to either approach. If you're going to grow your business, you've got to have capital one way or the other, or you'll be stagnant
Mhm.
and therefore going backwards.
Sure.
And so, folks have to look at, and then those two different approaches will require different things from your funding source.
Mhm. So, as far as with entrepreneurs and kind of getting started, there, that obviously we see a lot of businesses that struggle and they end up maybe failing, or the business owner gives up. Do you have any insight as far as what you think maybe some of the reason behind that is?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is that the only way that a company ever fails is because the owner gives up, right?
Mhm.
Nearly everything else in a business, and there are lots of hurdles to be cleared.
Sure.
Product market fit, right? Does the market
Mhm.
actually want what my product is? Is the market big enough for my product? Can I
Mhm.
acquire those customers at a reasonable cost? Can I provide them with the good or service at a reasonable cost? And can I make a margin on top of that that makes this whole thing go around and make sense, right? Those are your
Yeah.
basic
Yeah.
questions. All those things, though, can be solved. The one thing that cannot be solved is if the entrepreneur quits or gives up.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it's a cash flow crunch that gets them into a bind. That is, they've got some problem. Maybe product market fit isn't good enough. A few sales went south. They had one big deal that went south, whatever it is, and they've got to make payroll. They need cash now,
Right.
and they don't have it, and so they quit. They declare bankruptcy, and it's over.
Mhm.
Usually, in those cases, there was an out. There was a solution. There was a way to hustle, bootstrap, whatever, and get the additional capital to bridge them through the learning experience that they're having right now, right? Because everything else can be
Mhm.
fixed,
Sure.
right? Product market fit can be fixed, pricing can be fixed, um, you know, acquisition costs can be fixed. I mean, all these things can be fixed. The one thing that is sort of the permanent tie to throw in the towel. And so that's the one thing that just has to be avoided. But it does take some clever and creative financing often to make sure that the lights stay on, in the meantime while they're figuring everything out.
Sure. Sure. So when you're mentioning some of the roadblocks and the resources just earlier, what were some of the specific roadblocks and resources that you would advise someone just starting out? Roadblocks that you've seen that you would warn against, and maybe some resources that would help them to make sure they can get through. Maybe that the first, say 3 to 5 years to get to that point.
Yeah. So my two biggest pieces of advice. Number one is to avoid falling in love with your own product a little too early, and to spend a lot more time focused on the problem in the market that your product or service is solving, and less time focused on the product or service. And that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but here's what I mean by it.
Mhm.
Most entrepreneurs make the fatal mistake of inventing something they think is cool and then trying to find a market for that thing. That's the opposite of
Right.
what one should do. What one should do is focus on a pain point, on a need, on a problem, on an inefficiency, whatever is out there in the market, in the